Okay. Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to our new office. So it's very exciting to see you all here. We have been here only for a few months and we are kind of like experimenting what our space can be, and we are very excited to have you here this morning. So very warm welcome to the meetup. This morning we will hear Esa's keynote on customer-centricity to customer journey ops, and then we will have a panel discussion later on. If you have any questions after Esa's presentation, please share your thoughts. It is supposed to be very relaxed atmosphere here today, so don't be stressed and please wave your hand so we can point out your questions. If you want to have more coffee or more breakfast, we will have a small break after Esa's presentation. So then you can go and take more drinks and breakfast. Is there anything else that we should go through at this point? Maybe not. Yes. Yeah, close the blinders. Yes. Okay, let's go forward and welcome Esa, my dear colleague, who I got a chance to work with this spring, and we jumped into this journey ops, and it was really interesting. So Esa will tell you more. But welcome everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. And warm welcome on my behalf as well. It's so great to see you all here. A lot of familiar faces, some alumni. It's really pleasant to host you here today. And today what we're going to discuss is how customer journey ops is one way to kind of progress with the customer centricity in your organizations. There are a lot of other ways, but like what we have found is that this journey ops is a one way to do that in a quite systematic way. So I'll go through the presentation. If you have any questions while I'm presenting, I'm more than happy to kind of engage in a dialogue. I might not have all the answers for which you might be asking, but let's have a really open discussion. We are like 20 or so people, so it's not like a big event. So let's make it like really kind of interactive in that sense. I have been kind of quite focused on this topic lately is that we've been working on different kind of customer experience visions and strategies with like number of organizations over the years as a consultant. And as a consultant, when you work with the organization, you do that project and then you walk away and you hope that things go well after that. But like many of you work on a client-side organization, you realize that there's a lot more things that needs to happen before anything actually changes. So today I'm going to discuss a lot about start with the focusing more on like an organizational perspective, like how the customer journey ops could help out organizations to move forward. But then still like a lot of the vision work and the future things that you are thinking is a lot about the kind of customer experience. So let's not forget about the customer experience side of it either. So in the end, I'll talk more about the customer perspective, like how the customer sees your experiences. But yeah, let's start with the organizational perspective. And I start with the short story which really opened up my eyes. From last year, I got to work last year with one of our clients that we worked a few years before that, and for whom we did the customer experience vision and also customer experience strategy work. And I remember vividly that project, which was like quite demanding project. It's a fairly large organization, and we did a lot of like work with them on like discovering like their customer insights, pain points, mapping out the current state of different kind of journeys, mapping out their challenges in their organization that are like leading into the challenges in the customer experience, and then defining the long-term vision, which took into account like the technical progress that they were making and all the other like things that they were planning. And it was really successful project. Everybody walked away from that project like really happily. We took photos of each other, so I thought, hey, great job. We love to take photos, and celebrated the successful project. But then last year I got to work with them again, and I was like really keen on working with them because we had done the strategy work a few years ago. I wanted to see like what was the progress that they had made. What of those things that we had like set as kind of program and targets like had been actually done. But to my kind of disappointment, I realized that like very little actually of the things that we defined together had been executed or done. So there wasn't really that transformation that we kind of mapped out. Is it so bad, Eli? When she walks out the fifth time, then it's my turn to switch. So, no. So it got me thinking that like working as a consultant, you're quite blind to the facts that what is required for organizations to truly change. And it's quite disappointing to think that all the work that we do as consultants, it's very few percentages that actually get delivered. And that was like when I joined this company, this is like many years ago, but because we had such a big technology team, I was like a lot of software engineers here, because I didn't want to create PowerPoint design, I wanted to create solutions. But now I realized that that's actually the same thing what we are doing today as consultants. So a lot of like good strategies, but like the implementation is something that we need to focus more on. How do we help organizations to implement? So that's why I've been focusing very much on the customer journey ops. I've been talking to a lot of people, some of you as well. We had a really nice lunch with Maria, for instance. Maria has been working on customer journey ops at Fortum and now at SOK, and Maria will be part of the panel discussion today as well, so she will be able to share her perspectives on that. But that's the kind of story of this presentation. So we are now going to discuss on like how do we break the kind of disconnect between the kind of customer experience strategy and the real life. And you could say, you could remove the CX from this sentence. It's pretty much the same thing for all strategies, that it's not difficult to set strategy, it's difficult to actually to execute on the strategy and make the difference. So now I've been discussing a lot about the customer experience strategy and like how to implement that, and how the customer journey ops is one way to do that. But we also work a lot on like with the kind of brand strategy work. Not this company. Digitalis has multiple companies. We have a company called Crow that does a lot of kind of brand strategy work for clients, helping customers to kind of reposition and define the like direction for their brands. And this is much more familiar for me than this domain, that there's been like always a disconnect between the kind of brand and the customer experience. There's very few organizations or brands that you can say that if you look at the experience that they are delivering, that you could recognize the brand if you remove the kind of the name and the logo from that. And I was like, yesterday I was listening to Seth Coding, and I think he said really nicely one thing, and that like, how do you recognize that the brand is really strong? Is that like, if you think about Nike, and you think about, okay, they do sportswear and a lot of like sports related stuff. But if Nike would establish a hotel, like what would that feel? Now, if you think about your own brands, and if you would move into a completely different domain, can you imagine what that would feel? Like very few brands actually can think about that way. And I think he put it really nicely. But there is a disconnect between also the brand and the kind of customer experience. And that's similarly as what I discussed from the customer experience strategy. Same thing from brand, like how do we actually deliver the brand experience for the customers. So when customers are using your services omnichannel, how do they recognize that this is your brand experience? Is it different than your competitors' experience? Okay. A lot of it, and going back to this one, a lot of it actually is related to the organization. I would say that it's the size of the organization that's often is the challenge. We had a really nice discussion a few weeks ago with small, well, not so small anymore, but startup called Virta, which does this kind of EV charging stations, and they just received quite major funding round, and they are in a scale-up phase. And we had a discussion. We were discussing about the kind of the disconnect between the brand and the customer experience. And in the meeting that we had the full kind of design team, which was like a handful of people, and we had the brand team, which was 2 persons. And it was like such a nice conversation where we were discussing about that how do you go from brand to kind of brand experience, because you could clearly see that these people work together. It's not that they are sitting in their own silos and communicate through kind of documents. They actually work together. And that got me thinking, and I'm writing a kind of blog post about that as well, is that the size of the company actually has a quite big impact on the how well you can connect these dots. Like if you go to a company that has like 1,000 or hundreds of employees, you automatically start to form silos because you can't really fit all those people in the same room to discuss on things, and that's where the problems start emerging. And what we are lacking when it comes to customer experience and customer experience strategy and experience in general, we are lacking those kind of tools, like which connect people. What are the kind of common views that we are all looking from different perspectives, thinking about the kind of the customer experience. We are often thinking it through our own domain, like whether it's like some product that I'm in charge of, or whether it's a brand or like communication. We are so focused on the things that we are responsible of, but we are really not that focused on thinking from the customer perspective, that what the customer experience is. And remember, customer always goes across the silos. They never stay within one silo. They experience the full breadth of your silos. So why is it this so difficult? We already kind of discussed a lot of that why is it so difficult? If you define a kind of good customer experience vision, everybody kind of signs off that this is the direction that we want to go to. Like, why is it so difficult to actually move forward to that direction? The organizational silos is one thing, but like what I also discovered when I did quite a lot of talks with multiple people, and then self-reflecting on the projects that I have done over the years, is that it's all about people. And I had really good discussion with one leading change management consultant a few weeks ago, and because I was curious, and I had learned and discovered myself that it's in the end it's really about the people. Like, can you change the people beyond your own team, especially those who you don't have the kind of the power to say that you need to do this way. Like, how do you do that? And I talked to this change management consultant, and I asked him, so how do you actually, when you approach a new client, like what kind of situation it typically is, and how do you sell your services to them? And he said that it's very simple. That for him it's really, really simple. That he sometimes it's about strategy, new strategy. Sometimes it's about new system, let's say ERP system. So he goes to the person who's in charge of the whole system or strategy, and he asks so how much are you investing in this this system? And let's say that's a ERP, and they say, oh, it's a couple million project. Couple millions we are putting on this one. The next question that he's going to ask is that's great. So how much, when you launch this system or strategy, how much of the success of this is dependent on the people who are using this system or who are like following this strategy? And typical response that he said is that he gets like 60 to 70% is all about people. And then the last question where he closes the deal, the hook is that he asks like, wow, that's really impressive. How much are you investing in those people so that they actually understand what to do? And that's where he says that like we Finns, unfortunately, we are not really that good at on the kind of transformation or change management. We focus on building, but we don't really think too much about that. Okay, how do we actually succeed when we launch this, and how do people actually use it? So transformation just doesn't happen. And when it comes to going back to the customer experience, is that like if you think about, there are like different kind of like visions. Some visions are more incremental, that it's like you are already quite far and you are not looking into doing drastic changes. But often, at least when we are called upon, the time horizon is like 3 to 5 years, and typically in the customer experience front, there's quite a lot of opportunities that you can target. So you can actually, like quite often, it's not really incremental. It's more like, if not disruptive, but it's like significant change. What we are aiming with the like vision and the strategy work, changing the like direction there. And now if you start thinking about that, if it's incremental change, then it doesn't really require that much transformation. You probably have the like organizational structure and tools and method. It's more like fine tuning that, hey, change, like we need to focus a little bit on this. But if it's like drastic change, then it really requires that you need to change the way you work today. And that change just doesn't happen automatically. And customer journey ops, it's not like the solution to all of these problems. Like you need to still worry about the people and focus on like how do you ensure that the people understand what they need to do and believe in that direction. But customer journey ops is a one way to make that common platform where everybody's looking at the same thing, thinking at it the same thing from different perspectives. So well, like a communication tool. Yeah, and this is also one of the kind of the things that like when we work with clients, it's not like it's rarely said, but you can sense that there is this like feeling that customer experience and is somebody's responsibility or some team's responsibility. But if you truly want to be customer-centric as an organization and reach those kind of the business benefits of doing that, it's everybody's responsibility. And that's also like goes back to that it's like people aspect that you need to focus on the people. And we see this like when we do, like if we do customer experience strategy work or vision work with you, we do customer research, but we do also stakeholder interviews where we interview quite holistically your organization from frontline to the top management to the support functions. And in those discussions, like nobody's against customer centricity, but like quite often you sense that they feel that if somebody else will do this part, I will focus on the business side of the things, or I will focus on building this thing, or I will focus on the HR processing. Whereas like everybody should be really thinking about like everything that we do in this company is about our customers. Like how do we provide value for our customers? How do we understand their needs and so on. Okay, so, but like how do we actually? It's been a bit of messy, a lot of problems, a lot about people, a lot of challenges there. But how do we actually then start moving forward this one? And that's where we feel that customer journey ops is a one good tool for this. And I now will like open up a bit on like how does it work. From the perspective that we have had on working with some of you and doing a lot of exploration, but I'm sure that you all have also perspective on this. Some of you have even worked on the customer journey ops, and I'd love to hear more from your perspectives. If you disagree, I know that there's at least one point that we disagree with one person here, but let's voice those out. Mariam, we're going to have the debate later. No, it's just joking. But yeah, but if you think about your organization and your own responsibilities, what are you responsible of? Typically, like people in a design side, you are handed like responsibility of a kind of product. Let's say that it's your management is excited about the ChatGPT. They see the promise, and now there's like we need to have one of these as well. So that's probably handed to somebody to kind of, okay, we need to build this chatbot and have it AI kind of powered. So that's the responsibility of a person. And organizations are structured that you hand out responsibilities. If you look at the Spotify model, or like HMN is actually using the same model. I know the design ops lead at H&M. She used to be in our team in Stockholm, and I had discussion with her when she joins H&M, and she said that she has like 200 products that she's supporting. I was like, how is that possible? Like, how can you scale to 200 people, 200 products? But the product definition of the product has changed. It's no longer like a mobile app is not a product, but there's like separate products, like search is a product. So there are people and teams focusing on like such a small like things. And what's often like when you focus on so dedicated areas is that you don't see the forest from the trees anymore. And that's why kind of the customer journey level is really important perspective. And I know that you all are like believers of customer journeys. Well, you wouldn't be here otherwise, or we might have a really interesting discussion later. But that's the whole like idea from my perspective is that when you broaden your horizon, you start looking at it like, okay, from the customer point of view, there are a lot of other things that happened before and after. So the product that I'm really focusing on is just part of the kind of customer experience. And that's why, like, I think the kind of customer journey should be a really central place for the whole organization. It's been used like in service design as part of the project, but typically those customer journeys, they are done and then nobody goes back to those anymore. They are not part of the like day-to-day operation. Okay, so there are customer journeys, and company level there are a lot of customer journeys, and your customers go through all of these, but you probably are organized in a way that you look at them through this, and that's one of the kind of root causes, like why sometimes you have these kind of broken experiences. I was talking to one financial sector, one bank. I have a friend of mine who's working there, and in their kind of this journey, and it's a major bank, so it's not a small player. For instance, they had like a flow. I'm not going to go into detail what the flow was, but like it was perfectly Finnish, but then it switched to mobile, and it was like English. So there was like, if you are like Finnish speaking, then suddenly you are presented the English page with the information what you need to understand. So that just goes to show that like when you focus on just like one particular thing and you don't really think about the whole journey, like that's what you might get. Okay, well, this is a bit messy. And when we worked with Fennia also this year, and as part of that we did kind of benchmark interviews with again a lot of you and then some other organizations to understand how like organizations are organized around customer journeys, and there are like few things that you learn from those. Is that one is that nobody really has any kind of specific tools for those. They are using the tools that are already available. Typically Miro or Figma are being used. And that's partly it's because it's really difficult in a bigger corporation to get a permission to use any new tools. You need to go through quite a lot of hurdles before you get there. And then they have been used like almost like by individual decisions or teams decisions, but there isn't really like a company-wide practice on how do we define customer journeys. When I spoke to the HMN, they were probably the furthest in their thinking, and they had nominated one person as a kind of customer journey coordinator, and she was referred as the poor soul, because it is a really challenging task. It's not really easy task. You don't necessarily have the mandate to dictate anything. You need to kind of evangelize things. Okay, so if this is the situation in most organizations, that there are customer journeys, they are used in certain phases, not on a day-to-day, they are not really kind of used by the whole company, it's more on those pockets of knowledge. So what we kind of suggest is that you start organizing them around some frameworks, and they are this is a life cycle framework, which goes from becoming aware of the brand, about the offering, then becoming a customer, and then in the end exiting as a customer and all the things in between. We feel that for many situations this is a good way to organize things, because this is the natural flow of becoming a customer and living as a customer there. And a lot of the organizations are also structured in a way that there are people who are focusing on marketing side, for instance, on the awareness. There are sales organizations that focus very much on the sales phase. And then there are people, in Finnish we say hoitomalli, I don't know, is there an English translation for that, but a customer care model, I guess. Yeah. So there are people and organizations who are making sure that when you are a customer, the experience is good. So now, yes.
Is it okay to ask?
Yes, that was the
I
purpose.
was just thinking, it's very linear, right? And of course the use, especially something that is actually iteratively going. It's a cycle.
Yep.
And it was back at Fortum, just more or less before basically moving to SOK. We were actually considering that very visually as well, being iterative, and actually the people around, they really like that. Because that's always but it's not that linear. It's it's continuous. How to say, being in touch with the customers, so it should be also visualized in that way. So that's something that we found very useful way for visualization.
There are very few businesses who want to kind of streamline the process from becoming a customer to exiting as a customer. So businesses want to stay there and grow and become a more central. You want to terminate the customer. Curious to know, which business are you representing?
Employment services.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a good example.
We don't even want to have it more
it would be so nice to do a podcast with you guys about customer onboarding. On the back.
Something, maybe we will have that in the panel, but something we've learned also, and we have very similar, is now I feel that it's a mix of the business and the customer journey. So something we felt that really helped is to have the business journey under. So for example, you have no customer who would say, I will onboard with Posti or Elisa. I will start using my product, because I had a goal. So I think that it's very important when we talk about customer journey to utilize the customer wordings. And we've been working a lot on that. And then having likewise the inside out view. So having the business journey with you could have the acquisition, retention, and so forth. So I think that is something that for us has been really helpful to sell the customer journey ops. To really bring the customer centricity from the customer wording.
That's really it's a really good point, and that's actually I'm coming to that. But that's one of the key differences when you go from using customer journeys as part of service design project to having them as a company-wide tool, which everybody centralize on. You need to have that business perspective, otherwise it won't be interesting for others. Yeah, and going back to that like circle nature of kind of journeys, we've been working with a tool called Teidu. If you haven't, Teidu, yeah. If you haven't checked it out, if you are thinking about mapping customer journeys, like I recommend checking that out, because that's at least based on like the benchmark that we did. It's the most kind of forward-looking. Teidu, like ne tekevät in Finnish. Yeah, yeah. Smart is good as. Yeah, yeah. But they have this kind of circular, like you can change journeys into the format can be also like circular.
Oh, they do that?
Yeah, yeah, they do.
I think it depends, like on the for the tools. It's always great to test, because some of them they support more this kind of the silent organizations, which is like you want them to operate locally.
Yeah.
So they do have differences, really, right? So you want to support this kind of flexibility.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have like a really kind of established kind
Yeah.
of stable.
Yeah.
That I think they do support. What they both do.
Yeah.
But I think there are certain features that you might consider.
Yeah.
And even also the flexibility of those teams, right? That they can support you with the tailoring.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
Good. So okay. A circle or linear, but still like you need to have some sort of structure that the organization can recognize and they can find. And also like the higher you go in your kind of organization, we used to have one good consultant who said that like when you work with specialists, and he used Lego as a kind of a metaphor. Like when you work with specialists, you need to use these like techniques Legos, like because a lot of details. But higher you go, like you end up in the Duplo level. So you need to be able to simplify it, and that's why like having this kind of like a view on a company level where you can then have also like traffic slides and things that you see that how well are we doing in onboarding phase, or how well are we doing in kind of in not in a termination except for one part, but in.
Oh, you want to know that?
Yeah. So it's good to also like have this kind of structure. Okay, so now we have structure, but like many of the comments already kind of like voiced out, like say that okay, it's not that much new. It's a customer journey. Now we have like almost like a library of customer journeys and a way to kind of like structure the information. So next is then going back to that your point on like how do we integrate the kind of the business angle into this. And also kind of different kind of metrics. So obviously kind of customer journeys are built using like quality research data, but when those are like more like living things, it's good to have also like the quantitative and live like metrics data from your different measurement points. So here what you should be looking into is, and these are just examples, but think about like what kind of like KPIs and metrics are you measuring from the business point of view? Like what makes this interesting for your business? Because now you are like what you are now doing is that if you, for instance, like focus on like the digital side, and if you have like whole website and so on, you get the like the analytics of from the web analytics. Now you can start like thinking, okay, when we change things on the customer experience on the journey level, how does it impact on the business metrics? Does it make a difference? And that then makes it much more interesting for the business side. And also, yep.
I was thinking about it like in this case, if you think that chatbot nowadays you can do pretty much the search of a product, order, and do all this on the channel. It becomes a channel, so it has its own journey.
Yeah.
But if you treat the chatbot as a supporting tool, then it's kind of so it kind of complicates.
Yeah.
The metrics that kind of cross.
Yeah. True. So think about like what is your business side like looking into? What are they interested of? Because you need to be also like when you start championing this like customer journey ops in your organization, you need to be able to sell it. And if you don't really talk the business language in this context, it's going to be an uphill battle. Depends, of course. It might be that you have some sponsor on a high up who says that we're going to do this, and let's not think why we are doing this. But that's very rare. You need to sell this. Okay. Then also like the modern and some of these like ideas come from the tools that are being like developed for this. So for instance, Taidu has this kind of idea that you can integrate like your Jira backlog into it. So now you have mapped like what our experience is today. You have like connected like business metrics in the different points. You have like business objectives that we want to improve these things. And then you have the backlog of things. Like what are we actually doing to achieve these things? What are the development activities that we are doing in different phases of the journey? So that when you are looking at it from like the product management point of view, you can then say that are we doing the right things? Are we focusing on the right things that fix the right aspects of the experience? Okay, so now we have structure, data, and metrics. But like I hinted in the beginning, it's all about the people. So like it doesn't happen by just you introducing a tool and then expecting everybody to start using it and start using it the right way. So what we discovered is, and this is more from, because we couldn't find a organization in Nordics, probably there is, but we couldn't find one which has really implemented this. So this is based on more on what we found from kind of different kind of speeches globally. And I'm actually having one talk on Friday with the Netherlands Post, who has implemented the customer journey ops using Taidu. So what I'm going to focus very much on is that what was the journey like? What are the things that you should avoid? But what we discovered, like from those like desktop research, was that you need to have this kind of journey coordinator, whose role and responsibility is to kind of train people, talk about this, ensure that everybody understands the importance of it and how to do customer journeys. But also then, if you think about the kind of the company level view, to kind of own that one. So ensure that like the data and everything is placed there. So if your executives are looking at it, that it's actually accurate. On the back.
Yeah, I would like to go back to one slide. No, because I was waiting what was coming next.
Yep.
Before again. Yeah, so I was expecting that you would add also the operational metrics. Because one thing that I'm really struggling with is that, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anything, but that's also something I've learned moving from design to business side when leading customer experience actions, is that when we think from the perspective of design, we tend to always link it to product. And now you gave the example of Taidu, the backlog of product. But how about the operation? How about the processes?
Yeah.
And for me, that's really difficult because you started to say that you will look at the organization, and I think the organization is not led by the products always. Mainly, it's also by those processes. And what kind of backlog is that?
Yeah.
It's not a Jira backlog. How do you change the processes that are actually gonna, support that customer experience? Because I feel that when we move into the backlog of product, we tend to focus maybe on the UX. The CX is much larger than a product interaction. So I'm kind of, this is really the part that in the tooling also I'm missing. Like, how about the operations? The operational metrics and the processes.
Like, Mario, do you want to go first?
I don't know.
You're the guest, so you get to go first.
Okay, no, but it's a good one. And how I've been used to looking at this is really like, of course, you have like the marketing funnel, basically all the KPIs and the metrics that you are following, but really like not connecting what we do against the products, like you are pointing out, Mario, but actually to the experience. So the experience curve is actually the one that is then supporting you to choose correctly or prioritize together with the business value. So of course, what is important for the business, because then of course you need to also combine that which moments are that really matter.
Yep.
The most importance for the customer and of course for the business.
Yep.
So, good point.
Yeah, I kind of bypass the whole the emotional curve part completely because like that's typically that has been in the customer journeys, and that's what we always kind of map, and we also said like what is expected, what are we aiming towards. But going back to that, you're gonna talk about like internal processes and operational efficiencies. For me, it's always been that there's two kind of design projects almost, and of course they are part of the kind of same, but still you have two kind of angles to it. One is to like think about like from the customer point of view, what are the customers' processes before they like start discussing with us when they are going through the different journeys. But then the other one is okay, so if we want to deliver that experience, so on our side, internal operations, like how do we need, and that's another kind of design challenge that you need to solve. But interestingly, like if you go and you look at the different, let's say, like you sample like a lot of organizations and like you ask them like, can you present like what kind of customer journeys you have? Typically, you actually present it more on their internal processes rather than the customer journeys. Like it's a lot about like, hey, this is how we work when and in this phase is, and okay, the customer is like, now we need this information from the customer, and that's like shown there. But what is often absent is that what's the wider customer perspective on it. But yeah, it's a good point. Like you need to also focus on the kind of internal operations, and there are like, for instance, they do support that.
Yeah, and it's about also us mapping, so they don't come with the specific lanes, right? So you have to bring those lanes like as a process that supports customer journey. So for instance, like I work with insurance, so we have underwriting, we have like a multiple process, like a claims, and so that goes through the journey. So you can map them. They're not necessarily like product specific, but of course they have channels, they have and then you can treat those channels as products, but it's scaling up and down. It's a bit of work, but once things are there, it kind of makes life easier.
Yeah.
And communicating as well, as you said, like, you have like metrics that you want to communicate in high level, but some that you actually measure very detailed, so we keep things good.
Yeah.
We're nowhere close to ready, so this is not a ready answer, but anyway, so coming back to that one, so what we have started to do is basically that trying to look at that picture that you were showing, doing the both at the same time. So in a way, customer journey ops and employee journey ops. And by employee journey, I do not mean like a recruitment induction type of thing, but like what do I actually do as a, for example, sales rep in my work? So this is what we are tackling with Alexa here at the moment. But anyway, so looking at both of those, and then basically thinking that as a backlog. We're not there yet, but anyway, so what I imagine that will be in the backlog, for example, when looking at selling as an employee journey, so probably there are process-related issues, for example. So they are slightly different.
And as a comforting word, I haven't seen a single company that's ready yet. So everybody's on the direction. So it's like if you are not there yet, like you are not like out of the loop. But hey, let's move on. So you need to have somebody who's kind of championing and making sure that the transformation happens. And but then, like on a concrete level, like what you need is also you need to like change the way you think. So if today I would go back to that product design slide, if it wouldn't be so many slides backwards. But like if you think about like a lot of the like operations is organized that you have certain people who are responsible of certain things. Now what you need to start thinking is that you need to actually, well, I go back a few slides. You need to start assigning people who are responsible of this journey, not just like one part of the journey, but the whole journey. So the customer experience part of it. And of course, like, and this is where we had a debate with Maria, that Maria's perspective is that it's not one person's job, but it's more like the whole, like, shared responsibility of that. But like, nevertheless, like, you need to have like thinking that you start like focusing on that. Let's focus on the kind of customer journey and the customer experience side, and run that as a kind of a product ownership. And then what are the kind of responsibilities of that? Is like first you need to have the kind of the long-term vision. Like what are we actually aiming to this journey to develop to? What kind of experience are we aiming to get? Then it's about like also like evaluating where are we today. And we often, when we start working, is that we start first understanding this, then we define the kind of the vision, and this is the part where we are not part of, which is one of the most important things, is that like how do you actually deliver that? So it's a lot of the kind of journey owner's responsibility is to kind of coordinate the cross-functional optimization efforts, to working with different product owners, different process owners, and ensuring that customer experience that they are responsible of this journey, that actually develops forward.
I have a question.
Mm.
On what level of the organization should this kind of person be actually?
And where?
Yeah. And do you want that person to succeed?
if you expect that person to succeed.
If you expect that person to succeed, well, it's, if you think about like more from like, if you want to make a change, it's difficult to do the change from bottoms up. You need to have somebody on high enough who can like pave the way, and you can then focus on actually doing the work. If you have to spend time on trying to convince that I should do the work, then you don't really have time to do the work. So you need to have somebody on the kind of high enough level who's kind of sponsoring that, and that's quite universal in organizations. But then what I think is that it's and what I forgot to mention is that I don't think these customer journey owners is some new role that you need to hire. It's more like you need to rewrite some job descriptions and add that as part of the job description of a certain people. So it can be that somebody's already kind of responsible of like a lot of the things that are happening there, then just completing that part. But yeah, like start from the top. You need to you shouldn't even try if you don't have the sponsorship from the kind of top. It's going to be so difficult journey otherwise.
And if I may just add a little bit on that, is that of course it depends on the sort of the maturity of the company. So how mature they are. So of course the role changes as well. So like say if you said that there needs to be first of all the management support that you are doing, maybe a program, so that it's really a bigger program where you have the ones who are then facilitating the overall change. But then you need to get that ownership to the teams actually. The team that will take care of the whole end-to-end customer journey. It cannot be one person, because if it's one person, then always the team members are thinking, oh, you take care of that, it's your, but it needs to be, it's like the agile mastering in a team or scrum mastering. It should be a hat that is changing. So that's sort of what I've learned over the years, that you need to get that really on the root level.
Good. So that was the kind of the organization perspective. So let's now because this is very dear and long-term passion of mine, like to discuss about the kind of more the kind of customer perspective. And I start with another story here, which is more like a personal story. So last year I got to discuss with the kind of customer experience or head of customer experience of a brand for whom I've been a customer for like many years. And we had a really like fruitful discussion about what they have been doing already on the kind of customer experience side, and they had done a lot. They had like a vision. They had journey ops, not in this phase, but they had done like a lot of customer insight. They had even trained their like top management on design thinking, and they had this like systematic way of doing this, and it sounded really, really good. Like I said, I wish I would be able to be part of that kind of like program to do that. But then at the same time, I was thinking that I've been customer of theirs for like 10 years. But for me as a customer, I haven't really seen that work. It doesn't really. I don't see any changes. I'm sure that there are changes, but I couldn't remember any of those things that had changed. And that's actually it's how we people. It's very kind of like part of who we are as a people. What we remember, there's been done this kind of research. It's been like even has received even Nobel Prize, but it's called like peak end rule. Is that like we people remember the peaks. And we remember the end of the experience, but we don't really remember the kind of what's happening in between. So if it's just okay and good level, it doesn't really, you don't remember, you don't talk about that to your friends. So most experiences are actually forgettable. So all the good work that you do to create this kind of frictionless experiences, if that's what the customers are expecting, it's important work. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but it doesn't really change the kind of perspective how the customers are looking at you. Again, remember like that brand of who I've been a customer for 10 plus years, they had done a lot, like really admirable work. But still, for me as a customer, I couldn't remember any kind of good peak experience. There was no negative peaks either, but I couldn't remember any positive ones either. And then if you just do the kind of what the customers expect, there are times when you will fail. We are still humans, and nothing is so simple that we don't fail at times. So if you don't focus on like creating like positive peaks, then you might end up actually creating harm by occasionally making a mistake, and then your customers like either voting by their shoes or then go into social media or friends then talk about that. But if you really start like focusing more on that, okay, if we start thinking about strategically in our experience, that where do we create those kind of peak moments, then you start creating like you exceed the customer expectations, and then when the moment of truth comes that I'm presenting with the new offer from another kind of your competitor, what I'm thinking about why should I stay? And if I remember these kind of positive moments that you exceeded my expectations. I had today, this morning actually, I had one of these moments myself. When I come to work, I always go to the espresso house. I have a subscription, so I always go and get coffee from there. I've been now going there for like 2 months because we've been here for two or so months. And this morning, the person who's the barista, she recognized me, and I didn't need to even order. She said, okay, so you have the regular coffee with the like milk on it, and it felt really good. I felt that she actually recognized me, and that goes to say that often these like positive moments are really kind of human moments, that like we recognize the person, that we are not just numbers, but we recognize those. I know that there's a lot of people from SOK here, so like also like with SOK I had this like similar kind of moment in the beginning when you had at least when I started using the kind of the food, not the delivery but the pickup. So I went to pick up the stuff, and if there was something that was missing that you didn't have, there was this handwritten note. I said that, hey, sorry, we didn't have that. And it felt really kind of personal that somebody went the extra effort and wrote and really nice and put a smiley on the end.
One new example about it is that we know that there's a lot of kids playing with the empty boxes.
Yeah.
So we quickly did the new designs with the store.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's doesn't take much resources for the team, but it's very humane experience that like the team is super excited to do it because it's something fun. It's not that not that big pressure from the business or anything. But then the customers, like it went quite viral in the LinkedIn, and there were a lot of posts around it. Yeah,
that's a brilliant example of like, and it's not expensive to do.
No.
That's also something to think about. That these are not expensive things. It's more about like your like thinking, or like how does it feel. But it's also like it's good to remember that if you remember that like the challenge that most brands have, that there's this like gap between or disconnect between the brand and the experience. These moments should be also about your brand. What does your brand stand for? Like how should your brand feel? And these moments should be reflecting those, because these are the moments that people also talk about to their friends. Like I now just talked to you about good moment that I had with the espresso house. So my last slide is that addition to kind of customer journeys, like when you start like building systems and you start like ramping up and focusing on customer centricity, don't forget about that. Your job is also to create those kind of peak moments for your customers, those positive moments that they cherish, and when it comes to when it's tested their loyalty, they remember those things. Good, but hey, thank you for this. Thank you for the lively discussion. We're gonna continue that, but
okay. Who would like to go first? So any thoughts or questions? So I'm gonna bring the mic to you. So who wants to go first? Elina, you look like you want to say something? Yes?
Hi, thank you. I'm not sure if I have something, but let's see. Hi, I'm Elina from the National Agency for Education in Finland, Opetushallitus, if you know. And we also want to terminate part of our customers, and it's a bit different view, but still we have tens and tens of digital services, and the problem is that they all have been directed from silos, and they all have goals related to their own service. And we have sort of been trying to form something like this in some product families, that they would all direct into the same direction, but it's quite difficult if the product owners, for instance, have goals related to their product, so that's their priority, and then if somebody comes, you were speaking about that it must come from up till down, and I completely agree with that, but I also think that it needs to be somehow in their goals, in the product owner's goals, in order for it to actually in order for them to prioritize that, because otherwise they will prioritize their own service and what will happen to their service and not the whole journey. But thank you, it's been really interesting. Do you want to add something, Angelos?
Yeah, sure. I was also mentioning how I feel that of course it's very valuable what we are talking about here today, but it also sort of feels like a dream state to me somehow, because of course we mentioned in the start that all these things involve people, and people are the most messy part of any company in a way. So of course, people are related also to their own goals and their own kind of incentives as well. And we often really stop thinking about that when we're thinking about the customer. Sure, everyone wants to think about the customer, but what if customer centricity sometimes clashes with business objectives? What do you choose to follow, and what do you choose to decide for example? So it's of course everyone is advocating for the customer, but I'm also mindful of the operations that we were talking about, and really thinking in kind of in the long term. For example, how do we make this not only a top-down approach, but as you said, everyone's job? How is it really everyone's job when, for example, customer centricity clashes with business objectives? So.
Do you, Esa, wanna? Yes.
Anna will.
Okay, Anna, you have the answer.
No, I don't have an answer, unfortunately. Sorry, do you want the mic? But I was just thinking what we do at, I'm service design lead at Fennia, a Finnish insurance company, and we've been working on a customer journey framework, on customer journeys together with Digitalist, and about the clashes between business value and customer centricity. I think that's a really important point, and I think at least in our how we've been trying to sell the whole idea to the business is that through this customer journey framework we also are able to pinpoint the touch points where there's more business, that we connect the business KPIs as well as say the customer CX metrics into the same framework, and there we're able to pinpoint, because we're not able to deliver the best in every single touch point to every single customer, but it has to be done in a way that where is the value, where are the euros? Yes. At least for us, it's very important in terms of selling the whole idea that we're like able to prioritize also what we're doing, and to show concretely that here we improve this and it brings us value in the business sense.
If I add to that business side, like of course there's different levels, but like if you look at some of the like customer-centric organizations globally, like for instance, Zappos is a good example of like being really customer-centric, and in this respect, on like when it conflicts with the business objectives, is that they kind of prioritize the long-term gain over short-term pain. So in a short term, they might take a hit on a business side, because they believe that the lifetime value of the customer is greater if they make sure that the customer stays with them and stays happy. So if you haven't read cases about Zappos, I recommend reading like Zappos stories. They are like these customer service stories on like how Zappos went the extra mile and made sure that the person who had a challenging situation was like really well dealt with. And they have spread a lot, and they have a lot of customers.
Is that the exception to the rule?
No, it's not exception. And also it goes to the how they have like incentivized their like call centers, for instance. They don't measure like how many calls do you progress per day. They measure the time that you spend on talking with the customer. So they have like stories where the person had been discussing like hours, because the person was her husband had passed away and she wanted to return the shoes that she had ordered, and they spent like hours. It was more like a therapy for that person. But that's how they guide the customer service personnel in a way that they are measured not about the efficiency, but they are measured about that how much time do they spend discussing with the customers.
I think they don't even put the pressure like on the time of the calls, so they remove it completely. So they don't want to know how much, so that you don't have these conversations. Yeah, just like you spend as much time you need, and of course there's like how they succeed, at the end of kind of making the customer, like satisfied with the call.
There was a
Yes.
hand raised on the back.
Yes, just a sec, I'll give you. Let's have one more comment after this.
Yeah, maybe it was not about the outcome or what we've discussed. That was probably very interesting as well, but to build on top of what Angelos mentioned. So I think, oh my God, I'm hearing myself. So I think what was something that we've come to learn into is that you map basically when you do your customer journey mapping or a blueprint or whatever you want to call it, and how deep you want to go, you are actually mapping your opportunities. So you can map your opportunities based on the value it brings to the business or on the values it brings to the customer. But essentially, if you take a very basic matrix where you have, value, negative, positive, and if it's the sweet spot where it brings both value to the business and the customer, maybe you should focus on those. Because you will always have millions of opportunities, but one way to prioritize where to focus is really on bringing those where you are able to show that you are bringing value in both. And again, I would argue that sometimes we're a bit naive in design, where we always want to focus on the customer and we tend to forget about the business, and vice versa. So it's really about fostering the collaboration and bringing the value that, like the sweet spot where the value is coming across both. So I would really try to, or encourage to try to not think just from the business perspective or not just from the customer perspective, but the linkage of the both. And they are not opposite.
Good. Tati, you can have the last comment, and then we will have a break.
I agree. Maybe it's more like a comment. It's not even a question. But I totally agree with the previous speaker or the lady, because this sweet spot of the customer perspective and business perspective is actually, for designers, it's much easier to argue when you talk to with the businesses. That's the way how they kind of agree to handle those points, because otherwise when you come to as a designer, it's like, let's have a customer perspective, this is so cool. They say, yeah, it's nice, thank you for the journey, we will think about it. But when you bring the value of the business, like, hey, let's look where are the opportunities for both customer and you, then they're like, hey, sold. So I totally agree with this perspective, and I think that as a designer, that's the way to kind of bring the customer centricity to the business, because at the end, all those KPIs that we mentioned, they still have to manage them. You can't just say that they are nice, but customer is more important. Not really. You have to consider both. So.
Hey, Sarah, sorry, I know that particular the plasma.
Yes. Yes.
When you find a sponsor who actually talks the language, and we know him very well with Irina, who has actually on the slide always the first bullet point is that the customer, how important the customer is. Treat them well, and basically meaning that stick to them and work together with them, because then you can start making a bigger change in the organization. Would you agree, Irina?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Now we will have a break. Thank you everyone so much for the discussion.